Viewer discretion and parental guidance is strongly advised for this segment on grooming gangs in the UK. The content is graphic, addressing the organized sexual exploitation and abuse of children. This is a real and harrowing scandal in England. Official inquiries confirm that thousands of vulnerable girls were groomed, raped, and trafficked by groups predominantly made up of British Pakistani men. Police, social services, councils, and prosecutors failed these girls for years due to systemic institutional failures, political correctness, and reluctance to confront the ethnicity and cultural factors for fear of racism accusations. The BBC has covered this extensively through the drama Three Girls, Newsnight survivor reports, and journalism by Alison Holt and others. Links to these segments and the full inquiries will be in the show notes. While this discussion may appear discriminatory to some, our goal is to provide truth. We will not sanitize reality. We encourage every viewer to examine the primary sources yourself. Welcome to WizeUp. I'm Paul Arthur. Today I want to tackle anti-Semitism, but also want to talk some about, judges, politicians, mainstream media. Sometimes we treat certain crimes less seriously simply because of multicultural issues, perhaps immigration or even race. Yeah, I think you know what I'm talking about. So we're going to jump into that. Quick reminder to hit subscribe. Our guest today joining us from Montreal, Barbara Kay. She's an award-winning journalist. She's written for many, many years for the National Post. And her website is barbarakay.ca. You can check out a lot of her articles right there. So Barbara, thanks for making time for us here today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Always good to have you on. You wrote an article here recently in the National Post about, it was entitled, If Only Britain Took Rape Gangs as Seriously as Israel Took October 7th. And so can you just share the backstory on this and what's taking place in the UK right now?
I shouldn't say right now. I would say it's been more like decades. For 3 decades, it's the issue of rape gangs, or they're sometimes called grooming gangs, because before the girls are raped, they're groomed. But the actual fact is that they are rape gangs. They are overwhelmingly gangs made up of Pakistani and Bangladeshi children of immigrants or immigrants themselves. They are older boys or young men, or sometimes men in their 30s or even 40s. They all know each other. These gangs operate across something like 110 jurisdictions in which the population there is diverse and Muslim dense. The gangs are able to operate for two reasons. One, many people are in on it in a supportive way. Most of the taxi drivers in these areas are...
In a supportive way? I mean,
yes,
wow. Like, who can support that? I mean, wow.
Friends, relatives. Okay. I mean, these girls are shared with their kinsmen, with, brothers, friends. There's a whole network that they can depend on to alert them in case there's going to be a police, or who will lie on their behalf and say that they were, with them and this couldn't have happened or whatever, and certainly won't report them if they do discover it. Neither will their families. So that's one reason they're able to operate so freely. And the other reason is that the police, the social services people, teachers, all what you might call the human services, human protection, and all the social services know all about it and have refused. This is a systemic thing. They've been told not to interfere on the grounds that it would disrupt community relations, and also because they do not want the social workers and the police and the teachers to be labeled racist or Islamophobic. This is it's not a secret. It's very open. we've had a few whistleblowers in the police forces who have said and even told distraught parents who are trying to get their girls out of the clutches of these guys. And they tell the parents there's very little we can do because we are not allowed to cause or to stir up trouble in this community. That's our orders.
Well, I mean,
That's
that's completely outrageous.
Mhm.
Um, so, so what is the response from the politicians? So when you say they are telling us not to, referring to, I guess, social workers or anybody in authority there, even police officers. So where is this coming from? This must be fairly high up the chain.
It is very high up the chain. In fact, it is coming from the politicians themselves, who most of whom do not want. I mean, the idea of appearing to be racist is so awful to them that they're so wedded to this concept of multiculturalism at all costs. Diversity is our strength. We've heard Mark Carney
Yeah.
say Muslim values are Canadian values. This is a projection of what they wish were true, and I'm not saying that some Muslim values are not in accord with our values,
Hmm.
but from certain cultures, certain countries, and certain areas of social interaction, very much the values are not ours. So, just as an example,
Yeah.
for, my last column was about this issue, and the source from which I that motivated me to write about it was a report that had been put out, organized and put out by a politician. His name is Rupert Lowe, and he started a party recently called uh, Restore Britain,
Hmm.
and or Reform Britain or Restore. I think it's Restore
Sure.
Britain, and it's called the Reform Party. And he is very out there, very open about immigration has not been a blessing in many ways. There's been too much of it, and we are importing cultures that are antithetical to our values, and this is the result. And he decided that since the government was dragging their heels on having a national inquiry on
Hmm.
3 decades and thousands, literally thousands and thousands. The victims were mostly working class white girls in towns like Rotherham and Telford and other towns that are sort of satellite towns of bigger cities, Manchester and Birmingham and London as well. And he said, this, if they're not going to do their inquiry, I'm going to do mine.
Hmm.
And so his was a very open. He had reams of girls who are now adults who testified quite explicitly about their experiences and how they could not get away from these guys because they were afraid of them, and the punishment that they would for say going to the police was very explicit. I'm remembering. I tell you, it's very tough reading because the details, the devil is in the details, and these details, I can assure you, you know, I sometimes laugh at the idea of trigger warnings, but I have to issue a trigger warning on this report because the testimonies are not edited. They
Hmm.
are what they
Yeah.
are, and
Hmm.
what these girls suffered. And, you might think,
Okay.
well, why don't these just kids go home to their parents and not? First of
Right.
all, a lot of these girls did not come from what you'd call responsible homes. But
Hmm.
even the ones that did, once they got sucked in, girls at 13 are very impressionable. A good-looking 18-year-old guy comes over and says, "Gosh, you're really pretty. I'd really like to talk to you, take a walk with you." And the
Hmm.
first thing she knows, she thinks he's her boyfriend, and that's the grooming part.
Yeah.
They take them to out to a restaurant to eat, or they buy them phones, and that's part of the way they operate is they buy the girl a phone, And that way, they're able to follow her movements and they can call her anytime they want. I remember one girl testifying, she was in the police station. She had gone to finally the she had gone to report them because she knew they were going to go after her younger sister.
Hmm.
And she was in the police station and her telephone rang, her cell phone rang, and it was one of these guys said, "We know where you are. You better get out of there fast, or else, we've got your sister." Like, so
Wow.
once they're sucked in, and some of the girls actually thought, they were interviewed and, well, did you really think this guy was your boyfriend? And yeah, she says, I did
Yeah.
because
Hmm.
that's
Yep.
I thought this was the way you showed your love, like was having
Yeah,
sex.
I mean, it's just absolutely horrific to listen to this here,
It
but
is, it
it's
is.
it's reality for far too many girls in the UK here. So, question is, what do we do about it? First of all, it has to be acknowledged that it's actually
Well,
happening.
it
So, it
is.
sounds
Yeah.
like politicians are acknowledging that, hey, this is
They
an
are
issue.
acknowledging it, and I mean, it's been common knowledge for a very long time. But the question is, when are you going to end it? What are you going to do about it?
Well, yeah, somebody's got to say enough is enough and stop worrying more about being called a racist, you're anti-immigrant, etc. And I suppose it often with politicians it comes down to how many votes do I have from this
Well,
cultural
that's the
segment
other
of
thing.
society.
That's the other thing are the vote banks, and this is a
Yeah.
significant portion of a lot of these towns are governed by. I mean, they're dominated by the Muslim vote, who tend to vote. Obviously they vote for the party that is most favorable to their interests, which is the way it works. Just to show you how wedded politicians are uh, to this idea of not making waves. Keir Starmer, who has just announced, he's leaving as prime
Mm-hmm,
minister,
mm-hmm.
a couple of years, I think it was 2017 or 18, he was the chief prosecutor, and a rape gang was actually up for trial. There was strong evidence. It would have been a perfect to set an example. And as the prosecutor, he refused to go forward with the prosecution.
Hmm.
And that tells you everything you need to know about Keir Starmer. And so uh, they did finally announce there would be a government inquiry, but it's not due until 2029. So that was why this
Oy.
Rupert Lowe put out his own inquiry.
Yeah,
Anyways,
yeah.
tough reading, tough
Yeah,
reading.
for sure. So again, I'm guessing that much of general the general population of the UK is up in arms about this and not very happy with the current political inaction, I guess.
They're not happy about it, but at the same time, there is a very vocal minority who are professional activists
Hmm.
and who know how to uh, work social media, work communications, get themselves onto TV, media who are sympathetic to this whole idea that it's Islamophobic, to concentrate on, and uh, white guys rape too, and to minimize it.
Right.
And let's not forget, these were working class girls. You can say that the class system is dead in England. I'm saying if these were girls of privileged class and, from the educated class, if they were their daughters, you can be very sure the
Hmm.
problem would not exist. So
Yeah, there'd be a different response, wouldn't there?
there sure would.
Um, yeah. Now, of course, you're likely going to be accused of being guilty of Islamophobia.
Well, I
Okay.
already am so
So,
so often that it's just one more layer. I don't care.
okay.
And I have to say, although I used to get a little concerned about being vilified on X, or I am now just one of many people who will say your calling me Islamophobic isn't working anymore because there's too much going on in front of people's eyes. They can see,
Hmm. Yeah,
what's
yeah,
happening.
and again, I mean, certainly, I think you and I can both say anecdotally, we have some Muslim acquaintances or friends, and there's
Of
many
course.
wonderful Muslim people out there. So this is not an anti-race thing, an anti-Muslim thing, but facts are facts when you look at what's happening. So it needs to be dealt with. So, you look at any Muslim majority country that's governed by an Islamic government, where are the rights of women at compared to the values we have in Canada? There's a stark, stark difference. Everyone knows that. If you don't, you need to start,
Yeah, I mean, and
take a visit.
I think when you talk about everybody knows Muslims who want nothing to do with this kind of
Hmm.
stuff, I think that what you're really saying is you want Muslims that, I mean, you know Muslims, and I know Muslims who don't take who believe there is a form of Islam that is better than what these people, uh, the Islam that they're following, or they simply ignore what they themselves don't like about Islamic culture. But you can't say it has nothing to do with Islam, because a lot of these guys are telling these women or these girls that they're raping, you're a white woman, you're not Muslim, and you're trash. I mean, they're very clear about the fact that they praise Allah when they're engaging in these. So there's a class of immigrants from cultures where Islam is the official religion, and they take parts of Islam which are misogynistic and which are triumphalist, and they hold very strongly that is a significant part of their identity. So you can't say it's not Islam at all, because Islam is very much part of the culture that is producing men that come to uh, Western countries and feel that they can still treat women the same as they did in their own culture.
That's part of the problem with our immigration system, isn't it? We need to
Yes,
become far more picky, choosy as to who we let in. Again, not based on religion or skin color. However, I mean, there should be one-on-one, face-to-face questions being asked as to where are their values at? What are they bringing here? Okay, again, not all countries are equal in that sense. Some countries, don't have the same level of integrity, honesty that we do. Bribes are common in some countries.
sure.
Again, the treatment of women, very different in some countries. The acceptance of violence in some countries, much more accepted there than it is here. And if you come and bring those values here, it's going to cause all kinds of conflict, of course. So something needs to change in that for sure. Now, just for time's sake, I do want to also touch on anti-Semitism. I did promise to do that there. I wanted to bring up, because of course that's ongoing here in Canada as well. And recently, the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, he formed a new council, and try to remember the name of the council here, but again
Council
to
to
combat.
combat anti-Semitism.
Yeah, and he made a couple of appointments. He had a great speech, sounded good, and then he made some appointments to that council that kind of left me scratching my head, and I think a lot of other people as well.
Yeah, the council is nine, I believe, nine people. Uh, One Jewish person on the council, a retired senator, and you would think that if you're trying to combat anti-Semitism, you might want to have experts on that subject who from Jewish organizations that do nothing else but try to
Hmm.
combat. But no, very nice guy, but he has no expertise in that area. And on the council also were at least two uh, former politicians, or one is still active, who have made their anti-Semitic views known in, statements about Zionism in Israel and October 7th. So he has active anti-Semites on the council. This is an insult to the people he was speaking to when he announced it at the synagogue on, I think it was June 1st. He went, and he He spoke for however long he spoke. He didn't mention the word anti-Zionism. He didn't mention the word Israel. He didn't mention um, the word Islam. He didn't mention or Islamism. It was very general, and oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. We really have to do something about it. Uh, and in fact, if he had really wanted to do something about it, he could have said, "The problem is we have laws on the books that could help a great deal in combating anti-Semitism, and they are not being enforced. And from here on in, I am going to make sure that they are going to be enforced. And I'm going to call a meeting of all the mayors of the biggest cities in Canada, and we're going to sit down. Because the mayors are in charge of the police forces in the cities, and I'm going to have some very stern words for them. And that's what's going to happen. It would have been so easy. If he were serious, it would have been so easy. Our prime
Hmm.
minister wants the problem to go away, but he wants it to go away by itself. Or he thinks that if he sets up a council to combat by the way, there already is a senators group to combat anti-Semitism. It's already there, and they do a lot of talking, but talking is not action.
Yeah,
So,
obviously some
so
things need to
yeah,
change,
he is
and
not
so
interested in action.
yeah, it needs some concrete action here. Again, B'nai B'rith, they came out with their annual report on anti-Semitism in Canada, and what did they find? Where's the trend going right now?
Well, I mean, it's skyrocketing. It's getting worse every year, and since October 7th, it just it 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 was like a tsunami erupted, on our
Hmm.
shores. And
Yeah.
Canada is known as one of the worst countries for doing nothing about and encouraging, in fact, allowing it to skyrocket. So we have a political class that just does not want to engage in any very serious way about, I mean, we have wonderful journalists and we have wonderful business leaders and we have ordinary people that, and I certainly get a lot of mail that I'm just sick about this problem. I'm not Jewish,
Hmm.
but I can't stand to see this happening and nobody's doing anything about it. Ordinary people are really aware of the problem, but they have no power. They have no power. They say, where are the police? And the police, by the way, are in the same relationship with anti-Semitism in Canada as the police in England are with rape gangs
Do you think there's actually instruction coming from
yeah,
higher up?
I think the instructions are keep the peace at all costs, whatever it takes, and do not encourage. They're afraid. They are literally afraid that if they start arresting people and they start saying no, you can't walk in this area, you can't protest in front of synagogues and this and that, um, they're afraid of violence against themselves. Um,
Hmm.
and same in the UK. So if you're afraid of the cultural group that is causing the problem, then you have a greater problem than just that protest. And that is the case for the most part, because that's what here we do. I mean, there are countries where police enforce the law, even if violence happens. Even in Western Europe, in
Hmm.
Western European countries, you see in protests where the police wade in and they arrest the ringleaders, and if they have to beat them up a little, then they do.
Yeah, what a concept, huh?
Yeah, what a concept, actually enforcing the law. So they're not doing it here because keeping the peace. So what does keeping the peace mean? It means if you see some Jewish guy with wearing a yarmulke, a kippah on his head, who is simply observing the protest, you say you better get out of here because
Yeah,
you're inflaming them. Your
yeah,
presence
yeah.
here
Yeah,
is
I've
causing
seen
them.
that on
Yeah.
videotape, and it's quite disturbing,
This
frankly.
happened. This
I
happened to
mean,
my rabbi. He was like incredulous. He was standing very calmly. He wasn't engaging
yeah,
in the protest. He was standing across the street and watching.
yeah. I mean,
And
it's like
police told him to go
well,
away.
you're going to get arrested for
Yeah,
being Jewish and white while
yeah,
standing
yeah.
in public.
They're
It's
very willing, because they know that no Jewish group is going to
yeah,
be assaulting them. That's not the way it
Yeah,
works.
fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, it is
Again, certain
fascinating.
certain
Yeah.
cultures have better values than others, frankly,
Hello.
and
Anyway,
people love to criticize Israel, and that's fine. They're I
yes.
think free to do that. They should be free to do that. But what the actions that the state of Israel takes, against Gaza and their surrounding Middle East neighbors. Well, you feel free to criticize it, but I don't think we can juxtapose that on every Canadian Jewish person you meet, saying you feel the same and so you deserve to be attacked, just like they
Yeah,
feel
I mean,
maybe the state needs to be attacked.
everybody knows by now that this has nothing to do
Yeah.
with Gaza. It has to do with feeling free to express Jew hatred.
Hmm.
And they at the beginning it was, oh, free Palestine, and now it's,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
hey, you Jews, you're apes and pigs. I
hmm.
mean, they're not
Okay.
making much of a pretense anymore about their hatred. But these are, a lot of them come from countries where uh, hate hatred of Jews is taught from the early
Yeah, it's a
as normal,
culturally
as
accepted
normal.
value, and
Yeah.
if you're raised in that, then of course your kids are going to do this as well. What can the average Canadian, I guess, do to bring a better collective perspective about our Jewish neighbors? What can we do, I guess, to maybe change the atmosphere somewhat?
Well, I mean, all I can suggest, people ask me that all the time, and all I can suggest is
Yeah.
writing to your MP, going out to protests, to counter protest with
Hmm.
your Jewish neighbors,
Hmm.
um, writing to the newspapers, uh, calling in talk shows. Honestly, I know it doesn't sound like a lot. Signing petitions,
Yeah.
but if everybody did it, it would add up. And for example, one thing that happened that was very encouraging, there was a full page ad in the National Post last week of business leaders. I mean, CEOs of
Oh well.
yeah,
Okay.
big corporations, and
Yeah.
there were a lot of them, and they said this has to stop. Like this is a blight on our country, and a country that tolerates anti-Semitism is not a good, a country that's not in good shape. And I mean, I don't know the actual words, I don't remember them, but it was a call out, and every
Hmm.
one of these CEOs has, if he calls up the prime minister, he'll be heard, because these are, people that
Yeah.
that the prime minister listens to. And I've been told that one of the reasons that he went to speak at that synagogue was because he knew that that open letter was coming, and so he wanted to get ahead of
Hmm. That's very interesting. Well,
it.
I'm glad that there are people who have the courage to do that, because undoubtedly there will be pushback on that against people who are willing to take a public stand uh, to support Jewish people, and just to be basically publicly against any kind of incitement of hate against an identifiable group. Nobody likes that, right? I
Well,
mean, you
listen, I mean, it's the Jews today, but it'll be the Christians tomorrow.
yeah,
There isn't a Muslim-led
yeah.
country, an Islamic country, where Christians can feel safe or like first-class citizens. That
Hmm.
is that is a
I
fact,
got to
except
leave
for
it
the
there because
United
I'm out of
Arab
time.
Emirates.
But Barb, thanks so much for making time for us today. Very interesting conversation. BarbaraK.ca. You can read more of her articles there. And again, of course, you can see us at WizeUp.ca, or you can email us at paul@wiseup.ca. And don't forget to hit subscribe.